Reunited at last, Katie Woo, Bernie Miklasz in the house. It's only been what feels like 1,000 years. Bernie, how are you? Welcome back to the show.
Well, it's great to be back with you. Missed working with you, and there's been so much going on with the Cardinals, and I know you've been helping out the Athletic on a lot of postseason stuff. So yeah, I'm glad you had the time to do this because I always look forward to it.
Yeah, me too. And I know we've told our readers, or not our readers, our viewers before that this is going to be a once a week podcast through October. That's going to continue. The World Series starts Friday, so I will be there. And then we'll have more clarity again about the future of the podcast within the next week or two. But for right now, let's just go back to old time's sake. Bernie, we have so much to talk about, even though like literally nothing's happened since Chaim Bloom's press conference, but we'll break it down anyway. Welcome back again to Cardinal Territory, presented by Fox One. Quiet at first. Bernie, as we start to look, we know the offseason's not going to pick up until after the World Series, and we'll get to all of our World Series predictions and all that stuff later. When you are thinking about what the Cardinals need to do to start their offseason off on the right foot, what comes to mind?
Well, I think for Chaim Bloom to maybe reach an understanding with the players we've talked about so much, Nolan Arenado and Sonny Gray and Wilson Contreras, in terms of their willingness to move on. And that seems like, there's a much better chance of them saying, sure, if it's the right thing. So I think that he needs whatever flexibility he can get before he starts remixing this roster. And I think that that's really, really important. And I think his communication skills with those veteran players, and you know this much better than I do, really meant a lot to them. And they understand and they appreciate the fact that he wanted to sit down and discuss it with him. So I think he's off to a good start that way. I think he's identified kind of what he has to do. And like we don't know everything he wants to do, but you did some really good reporting on that for the Athletic. That, they clearly have to offload a couple of left-handed hitters. The Cardinals this past season ranked either fourth from the bottom or fifth from the bottom in terms of platoon split advantage because they have too many left-handed hitters, and it's killing their outfield offensively. So I think he has framed what they need to do, and I think that's the most important thing. He's not going to share everything, but he has framed the outline of what he wants to pursue. And you can't pursue it until, it's go time. The other thing, and I don't mean to take up too much of this time in the first question, but I will say this. The surgeries to Lars Nootbaar and Brendan Donovan, especially Nootbaar, with the heels, right? That's going to complicate things. So I don't know that Nootbaar will have much trade value if there's a feeling that he may not be ready to go. Plus, he's got his injury history. So I think that's a blow, potentially. And even Brendan Donovan, even though sports hernia surgery is not a major deal, it does fit a pattern of this is a guy who plays really, really hard and throws his body around. And he's been getting banged up. And it's like, hey, we want him, but what's his shelf life? Is he going to be one of these guys that hits the age-related decline early? I don't know that I don't think this was a good development in terms of what it means for their trade value. But I could be wrong. Maybe I'm worrying for no reason. But I do think that was a tough bit of news to handle because it's really, really important that whoever he's trying to trade has got really good value rather than diminishing value.
I think you're spot on here. And, I've been admittedly not as plugged in with the team right now, trying to survive in playoffs mode, which it's a brand new environment. Didn't really get to experience many of those games in the 5 years here in St. Louis. So when I get the Cardinals medical report, like we all knew Mason Wynn surgery in the timetable. I actually believe there will be, no hiccups there. We knew about Ivan Herrera and that plan. Those two seem fine to me. Those were not the two that the Cardinals were looking in terms of like potentially trading. We know about, we'll leave Victor Scott out of this because he doesn't really apply here, but the four lefties in Burleson, Nootbaar, Gorman. I'm missing one. Donovan,
yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm not as plugged in. I'll be better as the show goes on. The Cardinals needing to offload two just to maybe decrease the roster redundancy and have more of a platoon advantage. Well, if two of those guys in Donovan and Nootbaar have surgeries, and I think it's notable that the Cardinals did not release a expected timetable of recovery. I will get on that though, my faithful Cardinal Territory viewers. I will do my job and get on that. That to me is, I don't want to say a red flag because that's dramatic, but it is like an orange flag, a yellow flag, very similar to the types of men that I date. Just not totally sure. Yellow, orange, just kind of right up there. Maybe not. And I wonder, because I think you're spot on. As Chaim Bloom looks to what I think like significantly change the roster, I firmly expected Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar to be up there in trade conversations because you're going to have to trade two of those four that we just talked about. Nootbaar's injury specifically concerns me because of the projected timetable. Now, I'm no doctor. Of course, the Cardinals have not released their own timetable, so we can take a step back there. But this surgery for both of them, especially Nootbaar, hurts their immediate trade value. And I wonder if they have to pivot and trade other guys that maybe they weren't wanting to. Does this make Burleson more available? Does this make Gorman more available than the other two? I'm not sure, but it definitely will impact in some way how Chaim Bloom can declog their left-handed hitters, because he cannot roll out with the same roster as next season. That just simply can't happen.
Let me throw one note of encouragement in there about Nootbaar, because the original reaction, and I appreciate the fact that some reporters looked at how this particular malady affected other athletes. And with all due respect, the surgical procedures and the way these injuries are handled now is a lot better than it used to be. It's much more advanced than it used to be. So I don't know that if we talk about, John Wall and, Cespedes and a couple other people that had this injury, where if there's like a protracted rehabilitation, but there were some new injuries in there too. I don't know that really applies. I spoke to two different sports orthopedic surgeons that I know today, and they said, no. It's really changed. It's really changed over the last 7 or 8 years, where these surgeries now, and by the way, runners, competitive runners, ardent runners, they get this condition a lot. I mean, this is very common among runners, serious runners. And it used to be, it would set them to the side for a long time. And then when they did their rehab, it was very painful. Now it's the surgical techniques are advanced. The recovery time has been reduced dramatically. And the runners have said, like, gosh, I don't have to wear a boot for 6 weeks, 2 months. I can get up and start doing things pretty early into the rehab, and I feel really good. It takes a while to feel normal. But my point is just to offer maybe the recovery time for Nootbaar won't be as bad as feared. And I'm not saying that as a Pollyanna. I'm saying that because I talked to people who are familiar with the injury, because they performed surgeries on that particular injury. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's the nature of this early in the offseason, which is crazy because, again, the postseason is still going on and it feels like months since the Cardinals have last played a game. I think it's normal to like not really have a ton of news right now, and we're all a little stir crazy because this will be a much different offseason. And anytime you get kind of a surprise injury, I don't really think that Donovan's injury was surgery was necessarily a surprise. It kind of is like you would assume that was happening based on how he'd end his season. The Nootbaar one admittedly did catch me off guard. So
yeah, and I'm gonna say this real quick. Listen, I've defended Ali Marmol on a lot of things, and I think he's the subject of some really gratuitous criticism, and it bothers me. But I'm not just saying this now. I mean, I said it during the season. I talked to Ali about it, and I don't think he handled the Donovan situation very well. And I got to be honest and just say that, because Donovan himself said the toe injury, which they didn't take care of, where they could have shut him down, put it behind him. He wanted to keep playing on it. Ali kept writing him in. That led to another injury because he was compensating for the toe. That created the groin problem. The groin problem created the hernia. I mean, if they had just taken care of that thing earlier, I don't think his season would have been as torn up. And the thing is, what did they gain by playing him? They really nothing. His numbers collapsed. He wasn't moving well. The team wasn't doing well. There was nothing to be gained by kind of forcing that issue when just shutting him down for a short amount of time would have, I think, the really good chance that it would have made a huge difference. And these subsequent injuries would not have developed. So I just have to say that because I said it at the time, and one thing leads to another. Now all of a sudden it's surgery, so it just seemed like this could have been avoided. That's just my opinion.
I think that's a fair point. And I'll throw out here, like Donovan advocated to be in the lineup every single day, much
Right.
like Mason Wynn. The difference between Donovan and Mason Wynn is that Mason couldn't make his injury all that worse, whereas playing Donovan made that injury worse. And I applaud Ollie being a player's manager and listening to his guy. I know there was a big push to get Donovan to the All-Star game at that time, and he deserved it by far. But it did have a trickle-down effect to the second half where Donovan was virtually a non-factor for this team. And you think about how that second half went down. Honestly, the 3 weeks leading into the trade deadline and then the second half, it decided their season. And I personally don't think the Cardinals are that much of a worse team than the Cincinnati Reds. We can have a different conversation on how the NL Central had 3 playoff teams this year, but that's neither here nor there. I do think that in hindsight, it might have been better to just rest Donovan at the time. He's not a guy that's going to take himself out of the lineup. He's super gritty. He wants to play every day. You respect that out of a ball player. But for him to go out and say, I think there was a trickle-down effect from the toe leading to the groin, now to surgery, it's a fair criticism to make, especially when the numbers in the second half kind of back up that lack of production. So
right. And I do understand. First of all, I respect any player that wants to play and compete. And Brendan Donovan is a team guy. He's relentless. But it's like the old saying, playing hurt's a lot different than playing injured, and playing injured can lead to some other bad things, complications, another injury, whatever. So it's in the past. I just wanted to note that. I think Ollie did a hell of a job with this team this past season, but for me to maintain some credibility, or my credibility, I also have to point out things that I disagreed with, and I think, and things that just didn't work, and maybe should have been avoided.
Well, we will monitor Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar's statuses over the course of the early offseason, but let's hop into more offseason discussion on behalf of our sponsors at DraftKings. Okay, once again, because we are in the middle of the offseason, it will not be the DraftKings player spotlight. It will be the DraftKings person spotlight presented by DraftKings Pick 6. We're going to highlight Chaim Bloom here because that's what happens when you're the president of baseball operations, the newly minted president of baseball operations, I should say, facing your first big offseason and arguably the most imperative offseason for the Cardinals in the last 5 years. My expectation for when Chaim Bloom, we really get to see what this front office looks like. I'm not talking about the coaching staff, finalizing the major league coaching staff, finalizing the pro scouting director hire and the support staff that will likely follow. Those are all important. But fans care about which players are going to be on their favorite baseball team next year. And when you look at the Cardinals 40-man, which has been a talking point for us often, Bernie, over the 2025 season, there is a lot of work to be done there. There are 2 dates, if I'm a Cardinals fan, that I'm looking for come November. The first is the GM meetings. Let me pull that up on my calendar right now because I don't even know what day it is today. The GM meetings start November 9th unofficially, officially November 10th. They are Major League Baseball's kickoff to the offseason. The GM meetings, for those of you unfamiliar, is exactly what it sounds like. All of the GMs, most prominent agents, and some reporters will all meet for 3 or 4 days. And it's just here's what we're looking to do for our organization. Are you open to these kinds of players? It's the first time that free agents are really able to go out and explore their own markets. It is essentially a preview to the winter meetings. I find it much more easier to work the GM meetings, though. So the GM meetings is when I expect we'll have a better idea of what kind of players the Cardinals are looking to move. The second deadline, I don't have the actual date yet. I don't believe it's been public, at least to the media, is the non-tender deadline that usually happens towards right before Thanksgiving. The non-tender deadline is a great way to clear out your 40-man roster. And the Cardinals 40-man roster is a certified problem because it's A, redundant, and B, not very good. So I would expect many of these players to get non-tendered. What does that mean for those of you unfamiliar? It means the Cardinals will essentially not tender them a contract. You don't have to finalize contracts until the arbitration deadline in January, but if you are non-tendered by a team, you essentially are cut off their roster and you are a free agent. And I would expect the Cardinals to be very active at the non-tender deadline. Bernie, as you're evaluating this front office, when this offseason officially kicks off, what is one thing that you're looking for from a roster perspective that you'd like to see?
I would, I don't know if this answers your question exactly, and I apologize if it doesn't. I'm not trying to change the subject, I promise.
We're in a role-based podcast. We know this.
I want Chaim Bloom to, they've gotten off to a really good start. You know, some of the stuff Randy Flores did, and really, let's face it, Mo, it isn't like when Chaim Bloom was hired and brought in Sir Folio and Matt Pierpont and Larry Day and those guys, that's when the Cardinals farm system just started to like take off. There was some real progress being made. And listen, I know that Mo was the one that let it fall apart. I know that. But the Cardinals farm system, especially in terms of pitching, starting pitching, is really starting to take shape. You know, I hope you saw this. If you didn't, it's okay. You know, Fangraphs recently bumped the Cardinals up to the #1 farm system ranking in Major League Baseball, and they are just loaded with pitching. Now, I'm not saying all that the pitching is going to be fantastic. No one's saying, well, they're all going to be all-stars. No, it doesn't work that way. But they have so many pitchers that Fangraphs and Baseball America and MLB Pipeline like. The way this works is the more of those guys you have, the better your percentage that some will come through because you have a big supply. And I feel better about the Cardinals' young starting pitching than I have in a long time. So how does this fit into your question? They have got pitching on the way, and I think that that's pretty exciting. But whatever he's going to do this year, this winter, about moving people, trading assets, my hope is that somehow out of that, he'll come up with a couple of more pitchers, starting pitchers that maybe one of them's ready to plug into the major league rotation. Maybe one of them, it'd be like AA, but a legit guy. I love the momentum of where their attempt to revive their homegrown starting pitching is starting to take shape. I love it. And I want more of it because what's the old saying? You never can have enough of those guys, right? So that's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm looking for. And of course, Katie, we all know he's got some major decisions to make about will he stay or will he go? You know, will some players stay or go? Will he try to move some people along? What's your gut feeling on, because I know you've written about it. What's your gut feeling about Jordan Walker, Nolan Gorman?
They stay. I think they stay. I think if they have an offer that they simply cannot refuse for Nolan Gorman, whether that's like a straight off one-off deal or a package deal, they would entertain it, and they might even be inclined to do so, again, to reference breaking up all of those lefty bats. Jordan Walker, though, I think he's here to stay for one more season at least. And I know that he's been a hot topic, and I know this has been a pro Jordan Walker podcast all year long. I am, if anything, consistent. He is 23 years old. His ceiling is still so high. He's a 5-tool player. And one thing that I thought was really interesting that happened earlier in the month was Chaim Bloom taking all of the beat writers and sitting us down for a 1-hour on the record session, just him, myself, the Post-Dispatch, MLB.com, and the Bellevue News Democrat. So there were maybe 6-7 writers total in that session. And he outlined every single question that we had. And there were plenty about Jordan Walker, as I'm sure you can imagine. And he made up a point that I thought was super interesting that I hadn't really thought of before. Jordan Walker has been asked to change his swing or change his approach or change the level he's playing at every single season since being called up in 2023. What Jordan Walker needs is to go into an offseason with a defined approach, a set whatever routine, a set rule of guidelines for him to follow all offseason long, and then have a full season to do it without, and I'm not saying those changes weren't warranted. There are things Jordan Walker needs to change for him to reach his ceiling and for him to be a productive major league caliber hitter. Asking a player to do that consistently throughout the middle of the season and then having, each year they've asked Jordan Walker to do something that has not been conducive to his overall success. It was in 2023, go play the outfield, even though you played it 6 weeks for your entire career, and go do it at the major league level. In 2024, it was hit enough to supply for the right-handed offense that we don't have. And if you don't do it, we're sending you back down. And they did. This year, you're the face of our transition season. Figure it out. So I'm not saying that Jordan Walker is completely innocent in this ordeal. At the end of the day, the player needs to make the results the player needs to produce. But as Chaim said, him having an entire offseason to work on what they've identified him and his weaknesses and the changes he needs to make, and then going into 2026 and having a season where he can do that and stick to the approach, we'll have a much better evaluation of Jordan Walker as a player. So that's my long-winded explanation of saying, I don't really think either of them will go, but I definitely don't think Jordan Walker will. Maybe Nolan Gorman. It just depends on what the offers are for all four of those lefties and how they can maximize their return. I feel very confident in saying Nolan Arenado out of here, Sonny Gray out of here. Well, not as confident, but I still feel confident about that. And then I feel confident that at least one, if not two, of those lefties will also be traded. So this is what I mean when I say it's going to be a different offseason. There's going to be action. We sure as heck won't have the offseason last year in which they signed Phil Maton in spring training and called it a deal. It just won't be necessarily like fun trades if you're a fan of the team, because chances are maybe one of your favorite players is going to be moved to another organization. It will be busy, just not with moves that will necessarily make this team super competitive.
And your feeling or your information at this point, because it can always change.
Can always
Contreras stays?
Yes, I think
more likely than I hope. Yeah, I hope so.
I think so.
I think he's kind of an underappreciated asset, and he plays first base very well. And with Nootbaar uncertain, like, you know, will he even be able to play for the Cardinals in 2026 or how much? You know, that puts Burley out in left field again, or, you know,
and Burleson did some exceptional work to be a league average outfielder. He really did.
He did. So I find them to be in a really interesting spot. I think there'd be a good market for Gray. I want the best. Oh yeah, and I want the best for Nolan Arenado. So I look when I want to make something clear when I talk about Gray and Contreras and Arenado, or even, you know, Walker or Gorman. I'm going to use a phrase, but it really applies as a general overview. I think it'll be really good for Chaim Bloom to get to work and kind of declutter this roster, which also includes getting rid of some of these entanglements where you have so much redundancy in so many areas. I think he'll start to hack into that, and I think that's a really positive development for the Cardinals. I also think that this group is so smart, and I think the way that, you know, Matt Pierpont's already impacting their pitchers in development. You know, when I look at that, I actually think this rebuild could maybe progress a little faster or moderately faster than I would have imagined. I think they got some things going. But the one thing, Katie, as you know, where is the power? I mean, we talk about starting pitching. The Cardinals have attacked that problem. They've got guys in development, legit guys. Where is the power going to come from? Because I wrote a couple things about this. I've talked about it. This is a power hitting game as much as people want to talk about small ball. If you can't hit home runs, you are so limited in what you can do. And these playoffs, not counting game 7, but in the postseason, the team that hit the most home runs in a game, 23-4. Now, there were 10 games or 11 games where both teams had the same amount of home runs. But the impact of home runs, regular season too, but you get into the postseason, it's huge. And I look on the out over the horizon, I don't see it. There's some people you look at and say, well, maybe it's Joshua Baez in a couple of years. Maybe it's that catcher, but he's 18 years old. He's got Raniel Rodriguez. He's got a long way to go. Where is the power? It is an alarming shortage of power they have in the organization and have at the major league level, unless all of a sudden Gorman really gets locked in and stays there. I think that is a huge, huge problem, and a really, really big assignment for Chaim Bloom. They've got to find power.
And maybe that comes from, because you're spot on about the pitching. Like every organization, especially the Cardinals, needs to develop starting pitching, because the prices on the free agent market, you're never going to match. But maybe the Cardinals in this rebuild can generate enough homegrown talent where they can go out and trade for power. Because I agree with you. I don't see any name right now in October 2025 where I say that's a power bat. That's a lineup changing bat. Like Ivan Herrera is a good bat, but what, 20 homers if we're lucky from Ivan, 20 homers from Contreras. Like, you need a power hitter. Look at the playoffs right now. How did the Blue Jays win the pennant? A lead changing homer in the 7th from George Springer. Shohei Ohtani. Okay. Like,
Yep.
you need power in this day and age. And the Cardinals, that's going to be a big test for Chaim Bloom to go out and find. So spotlight, Mr. Chaim, is on you, big dog. That's our
and he may, and he may not, it may be unrealistic to expect him to get that right away, but sometime over the next couple of years. And I know that they're looking at Baez as a guy, could be that guy, but even if he comes to the majors late next season, whatever, it's not like he's going to come to the major leagues and, his first 6 months in the major leagues, he's going to have like 23 home runs. He's going to have to grow into the role, but he's got the skills. He's got the ability to do it.
Power takes time to develop, but here we are again, about to embark on an off-season of development and a 2026 season of development. You can download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when we go live December 1st in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Quick ad read. Bernie and I'll be right back with you.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Void where prohibited. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. Bonus picks expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
All right. Well, it would help if I got rid of this banner, which was my one job to do during that ad read. Dang it. I was doing so good. From one segment to another, we're going to launch into our Fox One segment. And Bernie, I think what better way to do it than talk about some World Series predictions. So let's get this queued up. We'll be right back once I can find it. I'm not doing good. I was doing so good, but then we reached halftime and I fell apart. All right, here we go. Fox One. Okay, that was not enough time for me to get that up. That one's not my fault. Here we go. All right. Cardinal Territory, as you know, is brought to you by Fox One. Fox One is now live. You can stream all your Fox favorites together in one place, including the World Series. The 121st World Series will take place starting in Toronto on Friday. It's the Blue Jays. It's the Dodgers. One team we expected to be here. One team we did not. It's the Blue Jays' first World Series appearance since 1993. That is literally before I was born. So I love this for Toronto. I love playoff Vladdy. I also know how this is going to go. Dodgers in 5. Bernie, what are your thoughts?
I was one of these fools that thought, well, the Milwaukee Brewers, they know how to score runs in a lot of ways. They'll give the Dodgers a competition. They didn't, of course. They got splattered.
Oh, God, it was bad.
And by the way, I don't think it has much to do with the payroll. I think it's just that Dodgers starting pitching was just sick. It's
Unreal.
so
Have
good.
A front row seat for that.
I know. So here's the deal, though. I think Toronto is an interesting opponent because Toronto, they're averaging like 6.5 runs during the postseason. They're hitting home runs all over the place. They're drawing walks. They're hitting for average. That is a really, really strong offense. But it's not like what the Dodgers starting pitchers did was a fluke in the whole postseason, but especially the NLCS. And you know me, Mr. Numbers, the NLCS or the League Championship Series began in 1969. The Dodgers against the Brewers had a 0.63 starting pitching ERA, and they gave up an 0.96 batting average to the Brewers. They stranded 96% of the guys that got on base. They allowed 0.25 home runs per 9 innings. They just absolutely just destroyed that lineup. And that 0.63 ERA in a championship series, American National League both, the very best since the championship series came into being in 1969. We just saw a historically epic performance. And again, it's not a fluke. It's not a fluke the way Yamamoto's pitching and Glasnow and Snell. And then Ohtani, after that first start, was a little, but his last start to
I
clinch
think
it was great.
his last performance more than makes up for it.
And for the entire postseason, I mean, their ERA is the starting pitchers is ridiculous. It's like 140 or something. I think maybe Toronto can get to them a little bit more, or maybe even a couple games get to them. But that starting pitching is just so overpowering, and it's peaked at the right time,
Mm-hmm.
and it's for real. I don't see how anybody can withstand that and survive. I really don't. But I think the Blue Jays at least give them a fight. You said five. I wouldn't be surprised if they win a couple games because I respect their offense so much, and there's just something about that team. The whole vibe around that team is really great. So anyway, I'll be quiet now.
No, I think this is a good point because if I'm playing devil's advocate, look, after spending limited time around the Dodgers in their clubhouse over the last 2 weeks, they have four aces in their rotation. That's just absurd. And they are all peaking at healthy at the same time. And when you're hot, you're hot. And there's no team hotter than the Dodgers right now. But I look at this Blue Jays team, and if I'm going to build an argument for Toronto, I'm going with this. I watched 162 basically Cardinals games this year. There was no team that matched up worse for St. Louis than Toronto. I mean, across the board, I remember looking at the Toronto series and looking at kind of how they were matched up, and they had a couple guys hurt, but all in all, it's a stat or a lineup that makes a ton of contact. And the Cardinals, I didn't think we're going to have an answer for them, and they didn't. They were swept. Toronto soundly defeated the Cardinals by far. It was their toughest series all season long. The one thing that I can say about Toronto, and if I'm going to nitpick the Dodgers a little bit, Toronto was baseball's best comeback team this season. The Dodgers have some questions about their bullpen, although it helps when you have yet another starting pitcher that you can just plug in as your de facto closer in Roki Sasaki, and then he's good in his rookie year. I don't get it. It also doesn't matter if you don't have a lot of arms that you trust in your bullpen, if you have a rotation that goes 7 or 8 each time, but whatever. I digress. The Blue Jays' ability to post comeback wins and have the lineup that they do with some slug, with some power, they're very athletic, could give the Dodgers late innings some tough tests. So I will say that I don't think when I thought the Brewers would win one game, and when they didn't win game one in their most prime scoring opportunity, I knew after game one that they would be swept. I just knew it. Like that was their game to steal. They didn't do it, not for lack of effort. And then the Dodgers went out to steamroll them for the next 3 games. If Toronto can use their comeback powers, which they've shown all season long into the postseason that they are baseball's best comeback team, and get to a bullpen that still has some question marks, although I think they're more defined now that you know what you can do with Sasaki, you know if you can push him. You have guys like Blake Trinan looking more effective, Alex Vesia. You have Emmett Sheehan for multiples. That is where the real matchup is, the late innings. I don't think anyone can touch the starting pitching, maybe playoff Vladdy because he's really good and really fun to watch. But the one thing that Toronto has for its advantage is their ability to rally late against, if there's one weaker area of the Dodgers, it is their bullpen. So maybe
I agree. Yeah. I can see, here's the key. I just want to jump on your point and go with it too. Here's the key. The Blue Jays don't have to beat up the Dodgers starting pitching. Like no one's saying, well, they're going to have to maul those guys. They're going to have to score 6 runs. They're going to have to, beat them all up and score a bunch of runs. No, we're not saying that. If it's going to be a long series, if there's a couple of series where they can knock a couple of games, where they can knock a Dodgers starter out earlier than maybe we think, where the game is still a game. But the Dodgers starters in this postseason have averaged over 6 innings per start, and they could probably have actually gone deeper.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can just get during the course of the series, if they can get a couple or maybe 2 or 3 times, get them out a little earlier, maybe 5 innings, maybe 4 2/3, something like that. Then that gives, to your point, that gives Toronto a chance to get into that Dodgers bullpen, and then things can happen. And so that's something I think it's mandatory for the Blue Jays to do. And we'll see if they do it. And my gosh, George Springer, Vladdy's unreal. When I was comparing the Blue Jays rebuild to what the Cardinals are going to do to try to rebuild, because the Blue Jays have shown you can rebuild and come out of it looking good. One small difference, though, I don't see a Vladdy Guerrero Jr. It's and then the Blue Jays were actually still pretty aggressive, even as they were coming out of the rebuild. They go out and sign Springer, for example. So, but not to get off track, but I really do think Toronto's certainly a more dangerous team than even the Phillies, who the Dodgers beat 3 out of 4. It's going to be really, really interesting. But that is a lethal offense, and the Dodgers are going to continue to have to just get a lot of miles and a lot of great innings out of that rotation. By the way, I give them a lot of credit. I know they've got the $400 million payroll and all that, but they're also really, really smart.
They are baseball. That front office, that executive team is
right.
Excellent.
Last October, it was an entirely different thing. Their starting pitching was in tatters.
Yes.
And they rode their bullpen hard. I mean, it seemed like they used 20,000 different relievers, And this year it's the exact opposite, but that wasn't just a random thing. I mean, the Dodgers last offseason just, no, we can't do this again. And they decided we're going with a really aggressive plan to make sure these starting pitchers are fresh when they go into the postseason. We're going to change their schedules. We're going to skip over them. If a guy's a little sore, a little banged up, we're going to put him to the side. We are not going to push these guys and burn them out. And have them go into October, second year in a row, where we have all this talent in our rotation. But it's beat up talent. That will not happen again. And they made sure it didn't. And look at the result. They're smart. So people just want to, if they spend that much, they better win. No, they're really, really smart to go along with. They have the brain power to match their financial power is what I'm trying to say.
That's a fantastic point, because I think you can get fed up with the spending, whatever. I highly doubt that Cardinals fans are going to be agreeable to a team with $1 billion payroll. I understand, but how they've managed their assets, how they manage their talent, because they have put themselves in such a good position to have depth, because they don't just buy whoever they want. Right. They also draft and develop very, very well. They really do. They're one of the best teams in baseball in doing that. They allowed themselves to manage the first half. Okay, we have guys that aren't healthy right now, but we're going to need them in October. So let's use some of this other talent that we have in the wings. And that's led them to exactly where they are right now. So that's a great point, Bernie. Yeah.
And by the way, hat tip to Max Scherzer. Great to see him back in
the World Series.
He was great. He saved their season the other night. But I'm looking forward to this, because I think it's going to be a colorful and fun World Series. And I think at least the Blue Jays, to use the cliche, certainly have the capability of busting the Dodgers in the mouth a couple times, right?
We'll see. I don't think it'll be a sweep. I'm still sticking with my Dodgers in 5, but I would not be opposed if I hear Dodgers in 6. I still think the Dodgers are going to win it, but I think Toronto will be a formidable opponent, which you can watch all of that action, by the way, on Fox 1. From MLB postseason to NFL on Fox to big noon Saturdays with Fox 1, you get it all live. Start your 7-day free trial today. Offers are subject to change. Go to fox1.com for complete terms and conditions. Fox 1 streaming now. All right, Bernie, wrapping up our episode. Any last thing that we should talk about? I mean, again, I don't think we'll have much unless the coaching changes are finalized. I say coaching changes lightly. I don't think there are going to be any. Anything that we should be monitoring before November?
No, I mean, there's nothing much to monitor, until Chaim Bloom starts to shuffle the cards. What a pun, So I know. No, it really, when it's action time, we'll have a lot to talk about. But I'm with you that I don't foresee any coaching changes. In fact, I kind of, if you don't mind me throwing this in, I was on KMOX the other day doing the Gas House Gang, and people were asking, like, well, do you think, Yadier Molina is going to be a coach for the Cardinals this coming season? And I said, no. And people, like, I'm not laughing at that, but like even some of my colleagues, my brothers, and I love them, they were kind of like.
That's what I'm laughing about. I'm laughing at the taken aback. And this is no disrespect for Yadi, obviously.
No, it's not happening.
It's just not happening. And it's not the right time. And I would be very surprised if both of us are wrong about this.
I mean, there's a scintilla of chance, but I think my read is that decision's already been made. So
Same.
we'll
find
see.
out shortly. But.
And could you, with your contacts, Katie, could you talk Albert Pujols into taking the Orioles managing job? I don't think he will.
I think it's more Padres.
Yeah, right.
I was not surprised at all to see the Angels thing fall through, just knowing the Angels. But I don't know. Between those two teams, I think we'll see Albert Pujols as a manager in 2026. And if I had to pledge my allegiance to a team, I think it would be San Diego over Baltimore. But that's not for sure either. San Diego, what a mess over there. Every franchise is a mess.
I was going to ask you, and I know we're going 40 minutes, and I'm sorry, but I have to ask you your reaction to the Mike Schilt meltdown.
Well,
I mean, it's amazing that it happened again.
I was in the Walgreens in Milwaukee getting ready for NLCS Game 1, and I had my headphones in, so it read someone had texted me a tweet, and all I heard was Mike Schilt, and I put all my stuff down, and I was like, again, because MLB has a rule where during postseason games, teams need to get approval to have news break like that. Now, technically, this wasn't a team announcing it. It was reported by the San Diego Union Tribune. My friend Kevin Acey did a nice job doing that. But I put everything down and I was like, I'm going to get so many texts and phone calls in the next 5 minutes. And I did. It was the exact same situation in 2021 in disbelief. Can you believe this is happening again? Or what do you think happened here? I think it'd be unfair to speculate because unlike 2021, I'm not there with the organization every day. I have no idea what really went down behind the scenes. But at this point, it's a pattern, right? 2 7 5. And this is Mike Schultz, a baseball lifer, dude.
He's terrific manager.
I agree. And I'm never going to say someone's mental health is less important than a baseball game and the toll that it takes to manage a major league team. Look around the league. No manager looks good in October. Okay. They look beat up. We're all beat up. I would imagine that there was definitely some mental toll there, but it would have to be an extreme amount for Mike Schilt, who's given his entire life to baseball, to step away. I talked with him briefly. He said he's at peace with the decision. I believe it. I also believe there's probably more to the story there, just like there's more to the story in St. Louis.
Yeah, I've said this before, maybe on KMOX. I would have wagered a lot of money that after Schilt got fired in St. Louis, basically for bullying coaches and coaches basically saying, we're not putting up with this anymore. You treat us poorly. There's no need for, this kind of abuse and just to be so personal and nasty. And he was so crushed to lose that job. He was so crushed. I would have bet a lot of money that he would have reflected and he would have said, look, I just have to do better with the people that work around me. I just have to do better. Because when I know about this a little bit because in one of my radio stops, I felt a lot of pressure on me and I wasn't as good to producers as I should have been. I just wasn't. I was kind of a jerk. I have no problem admitting that. And I said, if I get back in this position again, it'll never happen again. Never. And it hasn't. I thought that Schilt would learn from that and it would make him better and he'd be more even keeled. But he's a great manager. He wouldn't be self-destructive. I was floored when it happened again. I was absolutely floored. And it's just a shame because he's so talented and he does pour his heart and soul in it, but I don't know what makes him sort of go haywire. And I do know this, John Mozeliak is, I don't know if he's owed an apology, but people ought to reconsider this whole episode because, there was a non-disclosure agreement, which is why he used philosophical differences because he didn't want to do anything. First of all, there was an agreement, but Mo also didn't want to do anything. He respected Schilt so much, even though they had to make the change. He did not want to do anything to hurt Schilt's chances of getting another job. So that's why Mo took the hit. He took the punches to the gut, to the face, the insults for that philosophical differences thing. And I understand why people were frustrated with that, but there was a reason why he did it. And I think people that have a fair mind, I think they understand that now. And I also think Ollie Marmol deserves some consideration of like, well, maybe we misread this, because it still bothers me to this day. Oh, he's a puppet. He's a puppet. That's why he fired Schilt. He wanted a puppet. He wanted a puppet. Ollie is no one's puppet.
That I know.
Right. I mean, Ollie went on KMOX like 4 times this year and basically said, I want Michael McGreevy, but I don't pick the roster.
Yes, he did. And he said it to
Four-
the
like
writers,
four
and he
times,
said it to
right?
everyone that would listen.
Does anybody with a brain think that a puppet would do that on the Cardinals rights holder station? Basically, take on his general manager on live radio.
He had 2, by the way. He had 2 front offices he was working under.
That's right. But so I think I think people that jump to conclusions with that, I think they. But you know what? There's such hatred for Mo in this town, and I don't understand why. Yeah, I don't understand why people dislike Ollie so much. But those people won't reconsider and be fair and revisit their opinions on that. But I think both of those guys come out looking a lot better.
There's not much I can say in this situation, but I will say this. I agree that John Mozeliak did what he could to protect both the organization and Mike Schilt. I think there was a sense of appreciation for what Schilt did for the St. Louis Cardinals. I mean, he dedicated 20 plus years of his life here. And I think Mo did what he could at the expense of his own self to protect everybody involved in that situation. Yep. His employees, Schilt, and the Cardinals' reputation. Because say what you want about Mo, he did whatever he could to preserve the Cardinals organization's reputation. And I think going out and handling it, philosophical differences, I understand fans' frustrations. You think I wasn't frustrated? You think I didn't know that there was something else going on? And knowing that he couldn't say anything, I think he did that to protect everyone involved. And I think the longer that this, eventually everything will come out, the truth behind it. I don't think everyone knows the truth behind it or can say it in a place where they can like definitively report it to a standard that would meet like reporting standards, right? Otherwise it would have been done by now. I do think he was doing his best to protect his own employees and give Schilt another chance. And I do agree that the way that it was handled was probably the only way it could have been handled, did not set Ollie up for success. And to this day, he is not seen as someone who is not deserving of this job, someone who was handed this job because of the organization's lack of clarity around why his predecessor was fired. So,
and ironically, Ollie followed the same exact path as Mike Schilt.
Literally, yeah.
Same thing. John Schneider in Toronto. The Blue Jays drafted him in 2002. He's been a Blue Jay the entire way, every step of the way. The fans in Toronto appreciate that.
He reminds me so much of Ollie, and I don't understand. Maybe it's because he's winning. I don't know. And, that's because he's winning.
And I said something in a column the other day. I said, Schneider, they could have fired him after 2024, but they didn't, and the fans were glad he was coming back. He's a lifelong Blue Jay, and that matters. That's a big deal in today's game. And I basically said, it's just, why doesn't Ollie Marmol get the same respect for the same thing? He's been a Cardinal his entire professional life. He loves this, right? He loves this organization. He has served it well. People need to just quit. They just need to throw down their hate and at least try to be fair with this guy. I don't get it. It bothers me.
I'm getting a sense, just based on comments at The Athletic and on this show, that things are turning a little bit.
I agree.
In Ollie's favor. I do finally see a shift. And look, I'm not saying he's like world's perfect manager.
No.
I think he deserves a lot more credit than what he currently gets. But I don't blame fans for looking at the state of the Cardinals from 2023 to now and being like, this sucks. Because guess what? It sucks. Being in the Dodgers winning clubhouse, champagne everywhere, everyone's celebrating. I was like, oh, would have been nice to experience this. So I understand. And when the team is losing, it's easy to just look at the manager. That's what they're there for. No, especially in this town, are fans going to point at the players? Okay.
Right.
I do think, though, the nature as to which Ollie was hired and how he was appointed to this position invited a lot of skepticism and a lot of doubt. He was also 35 when he was hired. Cardinals managers aren't ever that young. But he's a lifelong Cardinal, and I would hope that carries more weight going forward because he's now being tasked to oversee the first rebuild in 30 years, and we'll see how it goes. But right. I'm with you. John Schneider reminds me a lot of Ollie Marmol with 2 completely different fan reactions.
Right. I think Ollie had the most thankless job in managing last season. I really do. Now, some people say, well, what about these teams that had no chance to win? But everybody knows that. So it's not like some big, but what he was asked to do last year, basically he's working for two different bosses. He's trying to coordinate everything, and it's like a reset. It's not a rebuild.
Also winning, but like you can't play the players that are like doing the best.
He wants Michael McGreevy. He can't get the front office to give him Michael McGreevy until much later in the season. I mean, it's just like, how do you manage in that circumstance? And people say like, well, why are you so positive about Ollie? I said, well, I think I'm fair about Ollie. Who in the heck, like what manager, is there any established manager in Major League Baseball who would want to manage under those circumstances? No. It's a horrible spot to be in.
Now that I'm like removed from the season, I can look back and think of like what the last 7 months were. And I'm like, what the heck was that?
I know.
Like, in the moment, you just kind of accept that this is your fate. This is your reality. Like, this is the team you were assigned to cover. So just go do it. But then looking back, I'm like, who does this? We survived. He survived. I'm glad he's back for 2026. I get a lot of pushback. Like the writers are only like praising all these comments because he gives them access. First of all, no one gives us access. Okay.
That's a tired, stupid narrative.
Not how it works. Also, you think that this like with the invited access and the how he makes himself available doesn't always mean those are happy conversations. Okay, let me let you know. They're not always happy conversations. There is a lot of discourse, not all of it at an even level tempo, some of it very high, some yelling perhaps. But what we appreciate about him, and I know you know this, is that he is fair. So I hope he gets his turn at a fair shakeout in 2026, whatever that looks like.
You made me laugh because it's so predictable. As soon as Ollie Marmol started doing the show on KMOX every Tuesday, so the first thing, well, you only defend him because, you know, he works at KMOX, so you have to protect him. Oh, is that right? One of the early shows, I actually said this to Ollie Marmol. I said, Ollie, I thought your team kind of quit here on this last road trip. It wasn't good body language. It was
one of them.
Yeah, it wasn't good body language. I didn't see effort. And I know fans are upset about it. Yeah, so I'm trying to protect him by putting him on the spot and asking him, your players quit. That's what I saw. What your response to that? Yeah, that's really treating him with kid gloves, right? And there were other episodes that people are just so predictable with that crap. It just drives me nuts. Anyway.
I'm getting PTSD of after like post game. And cameras are off. We usually do a separate like 3 to 5 to sometimes 10-minute session, just writers without the Valley cameras or the FanDuel cameras, excuse me. And plenty of times where one of us will be called back in and the door will shut, and it is a helpful conversation. For both of us. So
it's a helpful conversation.
So hopefully,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Found this. I know it was a long podcast, but we figured
it's fun.
Together for a while, and we had, what else are we doing in the middle of October?
We had to make up for some lost time and lost ground, but I always enjoyed this season. I've really enjoyed doing this with you, Katie. Thank you.
Me too, Bernie. It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully we have more opportunities to do this in the future. We'll be back next week with our weekly episode at some point during the World Series. I don't know. There is nobody more day to day at the moment than I am. But for all of you watching, thanks as always. Bernie, super glad we could get you back, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later.